What does it mean to be poor? You might think that by just looking, poverty can be easily identified. A man asking for money, a family unable to celebrate Christmas, or even a child who wears the same pair of pants, shoes, and shirt every day to school. Though a part of poverty is sometimes very distinguishable, the significant issue of the poor is far more complicated and controversial than one might see from simply looking. As of 2012, more than 46.5 million people live under the poverty line in the United States. That is 15% of the country's population who, for different reasons, cannot support themselves on a daily, monthly, or yearly basis. But where is the poverty line drawn, and how might one determine whether they are poor according to American standards? The poverty line is drawn for people who have an income below a certain amount. Discovered by a general survey in 1993, the average income for a family of four was about $342 a week. That number does not include the cost of luxuries, but is the minimum amount needed for the necessities to support 2 adults and 2 children, and is simply not enough. Collectively, the 46.5 million impoverished people in America are $175 billion below the poverty line. A puzzling yet very common question that seems to confuse most Americans is, how did we get here? How does the United States, the superpower of the world, inhabit a disturbingly high population of poor people? In a poll done in the U.S. in 2001, people's opinions were nearly split in half as to what the cause of poverty is when given the options: people are not doing enough to help themselves out of poverty, or the circumstances are beyond their control, making them poor. Contrary to these popular beliefs, the 3 causes of poverty are one's individual income, economic inequality, and family status. Poverty is traced by a family's income. Economic growth is causing a decline in wage for less skilled workers, and the increase of single-parent families and their environments for which they live in are all significant factors to the growing rate of poverty in America. Despite the common belief that poverty is too impossible to fix, the solution to this deeply complicated problem may be accomplished with trivial ease. In the last decade, efforts to reduce poverty in America have been centralized around 2 possible courses of action: a universal basic income, or stronger funding for foundations that help the poor. A universal basic income is the idea of each citizen in the country, rich and poor, receiving a check of the same amount of money every month. The latest Census Poverty Report determined that a check of $2,920 to every American citizen, child, adult, and elder could cut poverty in half. Both Finland and Switzerland have experimented with this approach, and it has seemed to help poverty rates in each country. This seems like a simple solution and an easy program to run, giving $3,000 to everybody, but in America, this would require $907 billion and even up to $3 trillion every year. Switzerland is only 3 times larger than the city of Los Angeles, and the chance of this system working the same on such a significantly larger scale is doubtful. But say America decided a universal basic income would be the best option. Where would these trillions of dollars come from? This approach would use a large percentage of the government's annual budget and would require the trimming of government fundings in other areas such as Social Security, food stamps, and military budgets which the government provides. Taxes would undoubtedly be raised and the risk of debt very high. Money from the government might encourage people to stop working, and a universal basic income to the 250 million Americans who are not poor would cost around $1.5 trillion. These finances are not affordable, but giving a check only to a population of the U.S. might cause a sense of inequality. A universal basic income cannot solve many aspects of poverty where other programs could. For example, knowing that one's neighborhood can nurture the development of poor children, housing vouchers would enable them to move to a safer environment where a check might not. Funding foundations that help the poor would focus the money on those who are below the poverty line. Official programs such as Social Security, disability insurance, housing vouchers, veterans benefits, assistance to needy families, and unemployment insurance are all providing significant help to those impoverished. Poverty is a status which organizes people's lives, what they do for a living, and their opportunities for progress. None of this could be solved by a check. The government aiding programs for the poor, concentrating money towards education, and even providing employment for American citizens will help the poor much more than a check could. Poverty is an undeniable issue in the United States. Helping those in poverty is desperately needed, not only to help their living conditions, but it could also result in benefits for the country, including economic growth and a higher percentage of those who vote. A universal basic income could not help the many different features of poverty, where programs for the poor could. Recently, one of the most frequently asked questions across America is what the newly elected Donald Trump will do concerning minimum wage and how that will affect the impoverished. This deeply complicated problem of poverty, which our country faces, has a chance to be solved, but requires the attention from both a political and social standpoint.